Well, hello, CSC family. Happy Sunday. It is so very good to be here with you on this Sunday. I'm excited about our series, our continuation of the series. I'm excited about what I have to share with you all today. And so I would love if you could join me by repeating our centering prayer. I invite you to repeat after me. I welcome the Spirit of truth into my mind, and let it grow in my heart. Thank you, God, in, through, and as me. Amen. Ashe. And so it is. So it is. Yes, yes. Well, we are in a three-part series, Miracle Minded, the 12 Conditions of a Miracle, and we started last month with the first 4 conditions of the miracle, and I just want to give you those first 4 and kind of review them a little bit. This will be the last time I review the first 4 because, of course, we have another 4 to move through this month. But the first condition, emptiness. And in that sermon, Spirit abhors a vacuum, I use that principle. We've heard often nature abhors a vacuum. Well, nature and spirit are the same thing. Emptiness is that condition that supports us in recognizing that we must empty ourselves out through practices like meditation and yoga, but also through our consistent and deliberate giving where we're spiritually fed, recognizing that spirit abhors a vacuum. In other words, whenever you create a space of emptiness, God, source, life, whatever name you use for God, the universe will always fill it. And so that's why we must learn to practice that condition and embody that on a daily basis, right? The second condition, alignment. That was welcome everything in. And we talked about the true power of compassion and what compassion is really all about, but also understanding that once we've practiced this condition of emptiness and we've connected to the ground of all being, we've connected to source, because that's really what meditation is doing, then we have the opportunity to see beyond our own needs, right? And so that was embodied in the moment where Jesus, after having received some terrible news, and that's why he went away in the desert to practice meditation and kind of get himself together and to grieve. The crowds followed him, and recognizing their need, he was moved with compassion. That was the alignment place. And of course, according to the story, he heals the sick. The third condition, asking. The essence of your dream. I quoted Abraham Hicks, where Abraham reminds us that anything that we want, in truth, what the universe provides is the vibrational essence of the thing we desire. And so it's actually very important that we understand, as I teach, the thing under the thing. You may want money, but in truth, you want what that money, the experience and the feeling that that money is going to provide. I use the example of you may want a home. And so you're thinking, I want the down payment for that home. You may want money for the down payment of that home, but take your focus off of the money and think about all of the things that that home will provide. Think about the experiences that you'll have, the people that you will host, the parties and celebrations that will take place in that home. That's really your essence. That's your thing under the thing. And that's what asking really is all about. And then last week, the fourth condition, maximizing. My title was Use What You Got to Get What You Want. This is an understanding that having is the secret. And we see in the story where the disciples, just having fish and a few fish and a few loaves, they were like, this is nothing. They couldn't see that the principle is that something can always become more, but nothing will remain nothing. And so the third condition of maximizing is asking us to look at what we have, recognizing that that can always become more. But if you affirm and think that you have nothing, or what you have you equate to nothing, life is going to continue to respond to you in the only way it knows how, which is yes and amen. And so when you say it is nothing, life says back to you, yes, it is so. It is nothing. And we'll continue to do that until we shift our minds to realize that it is something, understanding that something can become more, and recognizing that nothing will always remain nothing. And so today we move into the fifth condition, which is giving. And I recognize that immediately you may be thinking, PG, you talked about financial giving in the first condition. We've already talked about giving. Why are we talking about giving again? This is what those churches do. They always talking about giving. But this condition is so far beyond financial giving. This condition teaches you how to truly live the life of a giver versus the life of someone who sacrifices. One who truly gives will always have. One who truly gives will live a life of miracles and answered prayers. And so my hope is, as we move through this condition, that some of the things I share today will challenge you to see giving in a new way and to practice giving more intentionally based on what you hear and what you learn. And again, this is far beyond financial giving. So first, let's go back to the Alpha passage. This is the passage that contains the code and the 12 conditions of a miracle, as Todd Michael teaches in the book. And we're staying right at the verse that we were in last week, Matthew 14, 16 through 18. I'm reading from the New Revised Standard Version. Jesus said to them, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." They, the disciples, replied, "We have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he said, "Bring them here to me." Now, this miracle story of the fishes and loaves, the feeding of the 5,000 plus women and children, is actually told, although in very different ways with some different details, in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Also, this is not the only story of the feeding of thousands. Just in the very next chapter in Matthew, we have another story of the feeding of the 4,000. In the story, as it's told in the Gospel according to John, or the writer of the Gospel of John, it says that there was a little boy who provided the fish and loaves. In John 9, we read this: "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they among so many people?" Here again, you hear that the disciples were living in that fear, doubt, and worry, right? They weren't living in the condition of maximizing. They couldn't see that something can become more, but nothing will always remain nothing. And one of the things that's interesting, just as one little highlight in that story as it's told by John, we're already seeing an example of giving that's beyond financial giving in the example of this little boy, who was willing to give of what he had to help to feed this crowd. Right? I don't know if that little boy believed that it would feed the crowd. There's no indication of what his mindset was. But of course, if he was there, he had been experiencing miracles and seen wonderful things happen. And so he may have believed, just by virtue of that, that something could be done with his loaves and fishes. But as we talk about giving, and as we talk about this as the 5th condition, the formula for giving is very simple. You've heard me say it many, many times. Give to God, give to you, give to people. If you're taking notes, please write that down. The formula for giving is very simple. Give to God, give to you, give to people. And while that sounds very simple, as you hear me say it, and you can agree with it, like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Most people, and you can look at your own life, I know I can look at mine and see where I didn't practice that, right? I may have been giving to God, but then I skipped over me and was giving to people. I may have thought that giving to people was enough, and so I skipped giving to God. I may have thought that the order was give to God, give to people, then give to you. That I was supposed to get, or you were supposed to get the leftovers after you've given to other people. That's sacrifice, right? And we don't teach sacrifice here at CSC, right? We're always trying to bring you to the awareness of where you're sacrificing so that you can stop. And so we recognize that while this formula is simple, it is not always practiced by us in that order, or some people at all. Now, in Open Your Mind to Receive by Catherine Ponder, she breaks down these 3 steps to giving, these 3 kinds of giving. And I just want to share with you what she writes about each one. She says, giving is the first step in receiving. When you want to receive, give. Now, of course, many people will hear that and think, oh, when you first want to receive, give to your church, give in that way, give spiritually. It does not necessarily mean that, because you need to understand where you may not have been giving in one of these three areas. So give to God. She writes this: various schemes have been suggested for getting rich quick. Most of them fail because they are based on getting, not giving. They have no spiritual basis. The reason many people fail to receive their good in life is because they do not practice giving or returning impersonally to the universe on a systematic basis a portion of all that the universe shares with them. And so when you hear someone like 50 Cent affirm, get rich or die trying, right, you recognize that he's not operating in spiritual principle, right? Getting rich will always fail, ultimately. But giving rich is where the power is. So first, give to God. That's the first step, the first kind of giving. The second kind of giving, give to you. Give to yourself. Yes, open your mind to receive by giving to yourself, because all progress begins with self-improvement. It is sometimes easy to undergive to yourself, but that unbalances the action of the law and keeps your good from coming through. You must first put your attention on the improvement and development of yourself, including your own strength and wisdom, before you can possibly help others. So many people have unfortunately taken on a mindset that it is good not to give to yourself. We see this all the time with parents, and unfortunately, particularly with mothers. Sacrificing your well-being, sacrificing sometimes your health, sacrificing your needs, thinking that this is for the betterment of my child. It almost makes sense, except when it plays out, you always end up with the shorthand, right? When it plays out, you end up burnt out. When it plays out, your child is ungrateful. And so it's so very important that we recognize that this type of giving is something that we must practice on a regular basis, because when we undergive to ourselves, we still create imbalance. And so some of you are diligently and faithfully practicing the first kind of giving. That's something that's been ingrained in you, and you've been taught that, and you know to do that, and you do that systematically. That's wonderful. You're giving to God. You're giving where you're spiritually fed. That's awesome. But are you undergiving to yourself? And what that looks like, I'm going to talk about different examples of what that looks like, but this is what, for instance, your 555 is. It is a giving to yourself. It is not about God. It is not about being a spiritual being or being spiritually jealous. This is what, zealous, sorry. This is what meditation is about. Meditation is a gift that you give to yourself. This is what your affirmative reading is, inspirational reading. You're investing in yourself and giving to yourself and feeding yourself. And so then when you understand this, I think this can then even inform what we think about what's called self-care. Right? What are the ways that I'm giving to myself? What are the ways in which I'm practicing the second kind of giving? And then the third kind of giving, give to people. After giving to God and to yourself, I'm quoting Catherine Ponder, give something to someone else. After you give something to someone else, bless whatever you have given. Bless the person or persons to whom you gave it. Then release both the gift and recipient. And we're going to talk about more why that's important. Whether it is a man, woman, or child, you can transform your life by transforming what you give, what we give to God, what we give to ourselves, and what we give to others. So this is really what the fifth condition is about. These three things: give to God, give to you, give to people. And so how do we activate this fifth condition? And so what I'm going to do now, I want to talk through some of the ways that you can activate the fifth condition. And I want to primarily consider, I want you, as you're listening to this, to primarily consider how this applies to how you give to yourself and how you give to others. Because again, I think we know about the first condition. We've talked about it. And if you want to learn about more, not the first condition, the first type of giving. If you want to know more about that, reach out to me. I'll send you. We have plenty of sermons. We spent 2 weeks on it in the masterclass this summer, right? But we understand, in as much as you are here, the importance of giving as a spiritual practice, the importance of giving where you're spiritually fed. But I don't know that we fully understand the fullness, the wholeness of this condition as it relates to giving to ourselves and giving to others. So how do we activate the fifth condition? Well, one, focus on the feeling behind the gift. And this is about generosity and love. One who is generous is liberal in giving and is marked by abundance. So there should be a positive expectation behind your giving, whether that giving is to yourself or whether that giving is to others. It should be undergirded with an understanding that what you give will be well received and that what you give will come back to you in perfect ways with perfect timing. That's the feeling behind your gift. This is how you activate the fifth condition. And I encourage you to think about when you're giving to yourself, even in those ways that you currently do, although I hope you think of new ways as a result of this sermon. What is the feeling behind the gift? Is the feeling, oh, I should do this? Is the feeling behind this even just a habit? Is the feeling behind this something that somebody told you to do? Or is it rooted in generosity and love? Is it liberal in giving and marked by abundance? Activating the fifth condition, remembering that like attracts like. In the same manner you have given, it will be given unto you. So giving should always feel good. The law is simple, and I love the way that Abraham Hicks defines the law of attraction. That which is like unto itself is drawn. And so when we understand that, then the how behind our giving, the essence behind our giving is what we will always attract, is what we will always receive, is what will always be coming back to us. And so it's important that we remember that like attracts like. So if you're giving begrudgingly, if you're giving from a place of sacrifice, that's what you're going to receive. And when you think about that in the ways that you're giving to yourself, if there's something that you can't afford, don't sacrifice because it's good. Find that thing that you can give that always feels good and give that thing to yourself, right? You may not be able to, spend $1,000 on the best spa day ever, but you can probably go to CVS or Walgreens and get you a bath bomb and a couple other things, and start there, right? That's something that you can afford and you're not sacrificing. Like attracts like. Giving should always feel good, even when it's a good thing that you want to do for yourself. Hello, somebody. How do we activate the fifth condition? Whenever possible, remain anonymous. And this has to do with when we're giving to others. I'm reminded of after Prince transitioned in 2016, one of the things that began to surface were more of the details about his activism, more of the details about his charitable contributions and his philanthropy. And we found out that Prince had been doing a lot of powerful things that nobody knew about. We found out that he had supported libraries and was giving so much money to support libraries, and that he had paid the medical bills of legendary musicians, and he had co-created and launched Yes We Code, which was designed to support young people in the inner city, right? Black and brown folks, those that are considered marginalized, in getting into the tech space through learning how to code. We understand now that he launched and supported several green economy initiatives and climate change initiatives. These were things that he was doing under the radar. He didn't want people to know about. He was remaining anonymous in what he was doing. And it's really powerful to learn and to know that now. And what I think about is how Jesus taught this principle. He taught this principle when speaking about prayer, and it applies in giving. In Matthew 6:5-6, this is very familiar, I'm sure, to many of you, when he talks about prayer. And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners so that they may be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And some translations say will reward you openly. This is a principle. It's not just about prayer. I could use the same word. And whenever you give, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and give in the synagogues and at the street corners, so that they may be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you give, go into your room and shut the door and give in secret, and know that your mother, Father God, who sees in secret, will reward you openly. Whenever possible, remain anonymous. This is a way that you activate the fifth condition. Also, then take care to attach no strings of any kind to your giving. Survival thinking asks, what's in it for me? Transformational thinking asks, how can we both win? And so this also relates to the difference between serving and helping. A lot of people's giving is conditional, right? This type of giving, it also occurs in almost every relationship, family, romantic, at work, even with a stranger in the grocery store. We knowingly and unknowingly attach strings to, oh, I'm giving so that then when I need something from them, they'll give to me. I'm giving to this person so that they'll like me. Right? I'm giving to this person or so that they'll promote me, right? I'm giving in this way so that I can get something back. Again, survival thinking asks, what's in it for me? That's the ego. But transformational thinking is thinking about how can we both win? And transformational thinking understands that even the gift happens in the giving. Because you recognize that, what did I say earlier when we talk about like attracts like, right? When we understand that we're focusing on the feeling behind the gift, we've already received. How else do we activate this fifth condition? We avoid codependent giving. Oh my goodness. This is the type of giving that leads one to become sheltered and lacking a sense of agency. See, sometimes we're giving because we think we know what someone needs, but we may actually then make them dependent upon unknowingly. I'm reminded I had a beautiful conversation with my daughter the other week, and she was talking about some people in her life that her age, early 20s, that they're just not able to kind of navigate some of the basics of life, right? And she said, I'm so grateful. She said, I didn't necessarily like it when I was younger, but I'm so grateful because you and my mom, you made sure that I developed a level of independence, right? And now I see why that was a good thing. And so we could have easily, unfortunately, as many parents do, we could have sheltered her, right? We could have easily, as many parents do, not let her travel by herself to Finland. And, mistakes were made and things were happened and we figured it out, right? I'm talking about specifically in that trip, right? But if we never allowed her to take that trip and to do that, she was never going to learn the things that she needed to learn. And so it's important that when you're thinking about your giving, and this is about giving to others, that you avoid codependent giving. Sometimes you think you're doing what's best for someone, you're helping them, you're not serving them. And so in your giving, you want to ask yourself, how do you serve yourself? The same thing applies when you're giving to yourself. Because a lot of times we give things to ourselves. I'm just going to say it. I know people love happy hour. Oh, I deserve this. I worked all week. I'm going to the bar to drink, right? There's nothing wrong with drinking. But when you set it up in that way, that giving where it's like, I've worked hard, so I must have this drink, right? That's operating in a codependent relationship. And so we want to avoid that because that's the opposite of what this fifth condition of giving is. Now, another interesting thing is expecting your return to come, or rather I should say it this way, expect your return to come from the right place. Earlier, you heard me affirm, I said that when we give, know that it will be well received and that what you give will come back to you in perfect ways with perfect timing. And this is important because oftentimes we give and expect that receiving to come from the same person, place, or location. But you should expect your return to come from the right place in perfect ways with perfect timing. There are some who mistakenly look to receive from where they have given. but all that you give will return to you in perfect ways with perfect timing. And I thought of a interesting example of this. I don't know if you all are aware of this. Someone shared a clip with me of Mel Robbins, her podcast, and she had a gentleman on there by the name of Dr. William Lee. He's a physician and a food scientist. And he shared something very interesting about weight release. So you may be giving to yourself. You may have decided that you want to release weight. And so you're giving to yourself. You're giving to yourself by healthy eating. You're giving to yourself by exercise and movement. And you're giving to yourself in all of these ways. You're doing these things, which is powerful. You're activating the fifth condition, right? Like attracts like. You're not judging yourself. You're not beating yourself up. You're living in the joy of the process. But you're not seeing the results, right? Those love handles that you want to get rid of, they're still there, right? Your flabby arms are still flabby, right? And you're like, what's going on? And so it's interesting because what Dr. Lee shares about weight release is interesting. One, as we gain weight, the first place that we start to gain weight is the back of our tongue. And so what you might know and recognize in yourself or others, many times as we start to gain weight, one of the things that happens is we start to snore, right? And in excess, that may even turn to sleep apnea. Well, it also works on the other side, that the first place we start to release weight, when we're releasing weight, is that same place, is that same space. And so you could be frustrated expecting your return to come from your love handles, right? But actually what's happening is you are releasing weight, but it's being released from a place that you can't see, taste, or touch, or examine. So we might become disappointed and dismayed when we have given to ourselves through a healthy diet and exercise, but don't see the results in our body. It could be that we're looking in the wrong place. We're looking for the receiving in the wrong place. You can apply this in so many different ways. I'm also thinking about meditation, which is a gift to yourself, as I said earlier. And one of the things about meditation, unfortunately, many people think that the gift and the power of meditation is in the actual act of meditation. And yes, you may experience some quiet, you may experience some calm. But do you know how you actually know that your meditation works? It's when you're able to choose differently out in life. When you recognize that you respond instead of react to something that you would have cussed somebody out about previously. When you find that you're able to access a sense of calm in a space of an emergency, or in the space of a challenge, or in a space of a loss or grief. That's when your meditation works. And so many times, again, people are expecting the return in the act, in the session of meditation, when you should actually be recognizing and looking for the return out in life, which is where, and which is the point of meditation. Give consciously and thoughtfully. This is how we activate the fifth condition of meditation. And this is very simple. If you're giving to a charity or a charitable organization, it's important for you to do your due diligence. Research the organization and make sure you understand who they are and what they're really about, right? Because there's a lot of organizations out here that, say they do one thing, and then all of a sudden you realize they're really supporting MAGA, right? Right? There's a lot of meditation. There are a lot of organizations out here that are doing certain things, and they say they're feeding kids, but they may be doing something else, right? So this is just important. Give consciously and give thoughtfully, right? This is not a passive act. That's very important, I think, just recognizing that level of engagement. And the last two I put together: don't limit your gifts to money, and give the gift of listening. One of the things you may not realize and may not have recognized when you think about giving, your presence is a gift. But in order to give the gift of listening, in order to get beyond money as giving, ask yourself, am I a safe space for the people in my life? If not, then that's when you need to go back to the first couple of conditions, right? You start practicing emptiness and alignment, so that will support you in becoming a safe space, a healing space, just by being who you are. Again, this is not about energy vampires, right? This is literally just by being who you are, which was embodied in this story, because Just Jesus being who he was, the people were drawn to him. And being who he was, out of alignment, he was like, oh, the people need healing. Let me heal the people. The people need food. Let me feed the people, right? Not out of, he wasn't being depleted, right? The people weren't energy vampires. Also, when you think about don't limiting your gifts to money, there's also the gift of time. And again, the gift of time, do you give time to yourself? And after you've given time to yourself, then you can give time to others. If you do not give time to yourself, it will be impossible, absolutely impossible to give time to others. Why? Because it's going to immediately put you into a lack and limitation conversation. Because you haven't given time to yourself, so how dare anybody ask anybody outside of you ask for your time? Family, strangers, doesn't matter who it is. And that's where that principle of filling your cup up applies. You fill your cup up, you give time to yourself, and then what do you give to others? You give from your overflow. So as you can now see, the fifth condition, giving, is far more than just financial giving to God or where you're spiritually fed. The giving formula is simple. Give to God, give to you, give to people. And giving should always feel good. As I close, there's another word that I want you to consider, and I used the word at some point early in the sermon, and that word is invest. So when I think about this principle, I think that's a big part of what this principle embodies. Webster's defines invest as to commit money in order to earn a financial return or to make use of for future benefits or advantages. Invest in God, invest in you, invest in people. Your investment will bring a return. Your investment will bring future benefits and advantages. Unlike the stock market, there is no risk involved in this investment. Practicing this fifth condition brings miracles, but only you can make the investment. And be sure, be very sure that it always feels good. For this truth, I am so very grateful. I am so very thankful. To this truth, I say, amen, ashe, and so it is.